We are seeing kids and teenagers getting type 2 diabetes now. How should parents deal with that?
I remember the youngest person I saw with type 2 diabetes was 5 years old. The parent says, don't do as I do as I say. This is the biggest problem. A lot of Indian parents will force the child, you have to eat this third serving because I say so. And only if you eat this, I will give you this sweet treat at the end. This is a horrible conditioning, Ryan.
Can people with diabetes safely try intermittent fasting, or should they stick to a low-calorie diet instead?
The goals of fasting and low-calorie diets are the same, which is to reduce the calorie intake. But the way in which both of them do it is very different. And therefore,
in your book, you've written an amazing thing about we should be encouraging our parents to strength train. Now, why are you telling all these oldies to start working out?
we need to help them build their retirement plan, which includes muscle. Money in the bank is one thing, but if you don't have muscle on the bones, what are you going to do with that money in the bank?
So many of us have a parent or a loved one living with diabetes. I've seen it in my own father too. The daily struggles with medicine, the food restrictions, the constant worry about health. And I know countless families go through the same. Dr. Roshni Sangani is a doctor who believes diabetes doesn't have to feel like a life sentence. In her book, Turn Around Diabetes, she shows small lifestyle changes, what we eat, how we move, how we manage stress can make a huge and a big difference. The way she has lived through health struggles herself and her work has helped so many people find hope, energy, and freedom again. In this podcast, we have touched on diabetes, lifestyle, and what it really takes to reclaim health. So with that, let's get into the podcast and watch it till the end because it can manage your sugar and can give you a new lease of life. India now is the diabetic capital of the world, and half of the people don't even know they have it. It's no longer just an old age issue. Doctor, you're not just an endocrinologist, but also a diabetes specialist and author of becoming one of my favorite books right now, Turn Around Diabetes, which I'm going to give to my dad, who's diabetic at 78. Some great stuff in here, and I want to pick your brains on this. So the first question that I want to ask you, doctor, if any layperson is watching in, what is endocrinology in simple words, and why are the hormones so important for everyone's overall health?
Sure. First of all, thanks, Ryan, for having me on and for organizing this chat. It's actually good that you asked because the word endocrinology is such a tongue twister that even my kids, when they were growing up for the longest time, they couldn't say my profession. They would be like, she's a doctor. Don't ask me what specialist because it's too long. and the same way that a cardiologist is a specialist of the heart, in the same fashion, an endocrinologist is a specialist of the hormones. But you hear people throwing this word around, hormones, and yet we don't know what they are. So if I could briefly in 1 minute explain what a hormone does. See, the entire body is one system. In modern times, we think I have to go to the stomach specialist for stomach, for a headache, I have to go to the neurologist, for lungs, I go to a chest specialist. We break the organs into different doctor clinics. The body is one, and the hormones are the ones carrying the messages from the lungs to the heart, from the kidney to the intestines to the brain, the gut. Everything is connected through hormone signaling, where the secretion that is released in one location travels through the bloodstream without any duct, and it reaches entire system. So that's what a hormone does. It travels and carries messages throughout the bloodstream.
Wonderful. So, we're like a big city and you have all of these mini districts in that city, and the hormone just connects everything. So that's great. You are an endocrinologist, and one of your features that I understand as a layperson is that diabetes is also a hormonal issue.
Yes, very much a hormonal issue. So in India, you have this two ways that you could end up seeing a specialist for diabetes. You might see a diabetologist, which could be somebody who has completed MBBS and then taken a 1-year additional certification diploma in diabetology. What an endocrinologist does is after MBBS, we've gone ahead and done 3 years of MD internal medicine. And then we've gone and super specialized another 2 years in endocrinology, diabetes, hormones, and metabolism.
89 million adults between 20 and 79 in India, there is a burden of diabetes on them and on India, and it's rising. So, my job as a nutritionist is to try and convince India to change the way they eat. What, doctor, according to you, are the early signs of diabetes even before a blood test?
Yeah, so that's a catchy one, right? In type 2 diabetes, you may not know before the blood test for years. You know, in the olden days, if I could give a bit of history, the word diabetes mellitus came before blood tests were even a thing. Doctors only recently have invented the concept of blood testing. All they had access to was the patient's urine, and they started to realize that this urine has sugar in it. Now, by the time the olden doctors knew that there is sugar coming in the urine, already their diabetes was very far advanced. They were getting sick from diabetes. And now we don't want to wait till such horrible symptoms come where the sugar is spilling into the urine. So I would not ask people to wait for symptoms. It could be fatigue, it could be nothing. I've seen people just going for a routine annual blood checkup and they're shocked to find high glucose. Even my own pre-diabetes, I had no symptoms. I just did the test because it was part of my routine checking and was very shocked to find that I myself had pre-diabetes.
So, you as a doctor screen yourself regularly, and that's the advice that you're giving to people?
Yes, I think in India, with the way things are going with our genetics, any person of Indian descent anywhere in the world listening to this podcast, they should be checking themselves for diabetes once a year after the age of 30 for sure.
And can they start earlier? Because I get a lot of kids walking into our clinic who are working in software companies and all, 20 to 30 years of age, they're already pre-diabetic. So as a doctor, would you advise people to just get tested?
I think it's better. It's not expensive at all. And you would rather not spend a decade. So the number 30 comes from like guidelines, but you're absolutely right. I remember the youngest person I saw with type 2 diabetes was 5 years old.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. In fact, one of the doctors, pediatric doctors from the US that I just interviewed, and she's of the same age group as me, and she said when she was in medical college, they never heard about children having type 2 diabetes. And now it's prevalent across the world. So, doctor, one is screening, but then there is a thing that all the people ask me. What is the difference between type 1 and this type 2 diabetes? For someone is confused between both of them.
Right. We should definitely clarify this early. And I made it a point in my book to, on the cover, mention that we want to make sure everybody, whether it's type 2 or type 1, gets the help they need. But the two conditions are very different. Okay. There is a hormone we're going to talk about a lot today, which is insulin. And everybody understands that, oh, insulin is something that you need when you have diabetes. Now, you and I, we have insulin circulating in our body right now. As we speak, we all have insulin being made by our healthy pancreas. The problem in type 1 and type 2 diabetes comes down to a difference in insulin. The diagnosis would be, oh, the high glucose. So people will say, what is diabetes? Sugar problem, high sugar. That's correct. But if you just say high sugar, you won't find the difference between type 1 and type 2. So what is the cause of the high sugar is very different in type 1 versus type 2. So the difference is in type 1 diabetes, the body is no longer making enough insulin. It's insulin deficiency. So the treatment is to keep them alive, you have to give them insulin injections. Okay. Type 2 diabetes, the body's making insulin, it's being released, and in the initial years when you don't even have symptoms, high amounts of insulin are trying to compensate and prevent this high glucose from ever coming. And eventually the insulin is not able to get the job done. We call that insulin resistance. So the difference is insulin deficiency, insulin resistance. That's type 1 is insulin deficiency. Type 2 is insulin resistance.
So, doctor, we talk a lot about sugar, high blood sugar, but I think a lot of people are not talking about hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar level. Why do we not talk about it so much?
Yeah, so if you leave someone with diabetes alone, they're just walking around, they've not seen a doctor, they're not getting any prescriptions, they will be having high glucose. The whole situation of low glucose in diabetes treatment comes when we start prescribing as doctors. There are certain very specific prescriptions that we can give you, either tablets or insulin injections itself, which can cause the hypoglycemia. The problem is we've not educated the patient that, okay, this medicine that I've given you does not cause hypoglycemia. So you don't need to be worried about a low glucose. So you don't need to be eating 6 meals a day. Or I have given you a medicine that causes low glucose, and therefore you need to be monitoring your levels. Now, as an endocrinologist, I strictly avoid all those tablets that force the glucose to go low and force the person to keep eating, because I'm dealing with majority cases of type 2 diabetes where the problem has come from eating all day, and now my treatment will not allow them to avoid the in-between meal snacking because I'm giving them a dangerously low sugar in between meals. So this problem of low glucose comes as part of many treatment plans, and we need to educate patients on that.
For those of you watching this podcast, Dr. Roshni has written an amazing book called Turn Around Diabetes. And trust me, this is an amazing book. It's heavy to read from a perception ability, but once you digest each page, you start getting the keys to unlock how you can reverse diabetes. And doctor, I wanted to pick your brain on this insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance, because I sit in a counseling room, and sometimes when we say these words, we as medical professionals, you as a doctor, me as a nutritionist, we assume people understand these words, which they don't. And sometimes they feel too sheepish to tell us that they don't understand the difference. So I'm going to ask you this question again, which is, why are insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance such big buzzwords? Could you break down for a layman understanding this insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance? Because both have the word insulin in it. And from an English point of view, I can say, oh, I'm a very sensitive guy, and oh, I'm wearing a water resistant jacket. But when I put these two together, I can't understand.
For sure. I'm so glad you're insisting on slowing down and clarifying this. I'm going to completely switch out of difficult words, right? And I got this feedback a lot that the book is hard for some people who have no biology background. So let's do something for your audience right now, is make it much easier. I'm assuming that many people in your audience have at some point fallen in love, and they've had those early days of romance. Okay? And going on that tangent, when you're in that good romantic stage of life, even when you whisper, the person can listen so beautifully. I'm sensitive to everything you say. I can hear you, even in the slightest of tone, every little action, minimal words, non-verbal communication. We understand each other. Our communication is so beautiful, right? Now, if fights start, listening capacity goes down. I'm not willing to hear your side of the story. I'm only interested in my side. I've become resistant to what you're trying to say. I won't get the message, and the communication is broken. Similarly, insulin is a life-saving hormone. We all need it to stay alive. In a normal, healthy body, insulin can signal in little, minute doses, get the job done very effectively, move the food that we have eaten, specifically the energy that comes after we digest the food. That energy needs to be parked inside the cells. Insulin helps escort that energy inside. When we are insulin sensitive, insulin is able to beautifully, gracefully get this nutrition, energy into the cells, and the body functions beautiful. When we have insulin resistance, insulin's trying to make the communication work. The pancreas is trying harder. It's starting to shout. It's starting to raise its voice. Insulin levels are creeping up, but the cells are not listening. Glucose starts to rise. This is high insulin, high glucose. Everybody's shouting. Nobody's listening. That's insulin resistance.
Doctor, if you weren't a doctor, I think you'd be a brilliant novelist on love stories, because that example was bang on. So I've understood it now completely. Yeah, you have the girlfriend in college, and she's very sensitive and she listens to you. And if that girlfriend becomes your wife, then after some time, it's like you're not listening to your wife, and then your wife has to shout at you to get something done. So
Exactly.
one wonderful example on how insulin works over here. So, doctor, as an endocrinologist and I as a nutritionist, we know that insulin is often called the master hormone. What exactly is it, and how does insulin work in the body?
Yeah, we should definitely cover that. So we talked about how a hormone is a messenger that carries a biochemical message to the entire body. When you eat food, your pancreas, a normal pancreas, will release insulin to help that digested food go inside the cells. So this hormone insulin, it is essential. You need it to stay alive. So the whole way that diabetes was figured out initially was cases of type 1 diabetes. That was the first case that we got noticed, was that children would not be able to stay a stable weight. The parents would be feeding the child the food, good food at home, caring parents, and the food would just wash through the child. The child is losing weight. So that was how they realized that this child does not have insulin. No matter what they eat, the energy is not getting inside the cells. So it's a life threatening condition if you don't have insulin. Once they gave insulin therapy to these children, the cells were able to receive the energy and stay healthy. And that was the way insulin became the first treatment for the early cases of type 1 diabetes. Now, in type 2 diabetes, we're having a different problem, which we're going to come to, is this whole insulin resistance issue. But it's important to know what insulin is. It is a protein hormone that the pancreas secretes that helps nutritional energy get inside the cells. It tells the body, are we going to store energy? So high insulin levels will tell the body, store energy. Low insulin levels will tell the body, release and burn energy. So it is the energy signaling, it's the orchestra conductor of this entire music composition, is should the body be storing energy and fuel, or should it be burning stored fuel?
Firstly, pre-diabetics is a moving target. Its prevalence in India has jumped from 6% to nearly 15% since 2017, and I think it's just gone through the roof post the pandemic. So, doctor, can you tell me, in your opinion, as one of the leading doctors in the world on diabetes, and you yourself are an Indian, what is the real root cause of pre-diabetes and insulin resistance?
So, Ryan, thanks for that question. You held up the book, and anybody who looks at that cover, they will see 4 circles on the cover.
Yeah, I'm going to show it up again.
Yeah.
So there are 4 circles over there.
Yes. Those are the 4 wheels of the lifestyle car that I talk about throughout the book. So insulin resistance or pre-diabetes is what happens before you end up into full-blown type 2 diabetes. And I think there are 4 major contributors to this. Breaking it down step by step: first wheel, nutrition; sleep; stress management; and exercise. When we find that the car, I call it the lifestyle car, when it is not moving well, it could be a problem in one of the wheels, it could be a problem in all 4 of the wheels. So poor nutrition, poor sleep, poor stress management skills, lack of exercise, lack of movement, these 4 would be the major contributors to insulin resistance and prediabetes.
So, when I look at it, obviously, a lot of our education starts in school. Do you think we need to work on the school system where we convince the youngsters to get these 4 pillars?
100%. And we have to redo some of the science books, because the science books are still saying 2 sentences, which after many people give up biology as soon as they can, as soon as grade 10 is over, they're like, please throw away the biology subject. I can't handle it. They are stuck with these 2 sentences that are very harmful. It is incomplete to brainwash people that carbohydrates are energy giving foods and proteins are bodybuilding foods. Those are not complete in themselves, and they can mislead somebody who's thinking about diabetes. What do I mean by that? When you say carbohydrates are energy giving foods, you're making it sound like I have to eat carbohydrates for energy. So the flip is not true. Yes, if you eat carbohydrates, you will get instant energy. But in today's world, where everybody's struggling with that extra belly fat sitting on the paunch, they want to be fat burners. They want to use fat as an energy source. But as long as they're using carbohydrates, eating, feeding themselves for energy, the body has no reason to use the fat for energy. So it's an incomplete and misleading statement in the schools. The second one, which is a problem, is, oh, I'm not a bodybuilder, I don't need protein. So now you've just eliminated 98% of the population that's not into bodybuilding. And there's a doctor, Dr. Ted Naiman, he did a video on this, that everybody's a bodybuilder. It just depends on what kind of body you're trying to build.
Very, very true. So, doctor, diving a little bit deeper on the energy source, right? So we all know that glucose is there.
Yeah.
Can you explain, because in your book, I remember reading somewhere that you talked about the 3 musketeers of glucose metabolism, and I really like that term. And then there's an unwanted 4th one. Expand, please, doctor.
Yes. So I found this analogy in another publication. It's not my own, but I've given the reference in the book. I thought it was very powerful, and it helps me explain to patients the 3 musketeers that help you maintain stable glucose, even if you do not eat any carbohydrates or glucose. All right. So it's 3 of them. The liver is the glucose provider. So even if you're fasting overnight, you're sleeping, how do we not die from a hypoglycemic coma? The brain needs glucose for energy. We keep saying the brain needs glucose. How does the brain stay fine overnight? The liver has been providing glucose through the night. As long as you're in a fasted state, it could be a 1 day or 1 week or 1 month fast, your liver will keep providing glucose by burning other things in what we call gluconeogenesis, make new glucose. The body can make its own glucose from within. The liver and the kidney do this. But the first three musketeers, the first one is the liver is the glucose provider. Second is the muscle. Muscle is the glucose taker. It will burn glucose. So you've heard in India, people will say, oh, if you have diabetes, you should take a walk or a post-meal walk. How does that help to bring the glucose levels down? The muscles of the legs and the lower body get activated. They're very big muscles. Muscles can burn through 60 to 90% of post-meal glucose. So you want more muscles. And why stop with just walking? I talk to my patients a lot about strength training. And besides being an endocrinologist, I went and became a personal trainer, got certified, because we don't know anything about exercise, right, as doctors. So how to build muscle as an approach to better glucose levels. So muscle is the glucose taker. And the third one is the pancreas, which is the glucose regulator. It is going to dial insulin levels up or down based on what's happening in the environment. Do we need to secrete more insulin to bring glucose down, or do we need to secrete less insulin and let the stored glucose come from the storage sites? So the three musketeers: liver, muscle, pancreas.
Amazingly explained. And is there a fourth unwanted musketeer?
Yes. So let's say I come to you, Ryan, and say, Ryan, you're so good. Here's ₹1,000,000 in coins, in 1 rupee coins. You'll say,
That's a lot of coins.
it's a lot of coins. You'll say, it's going to fill my whole office. I can't keep it. This is not going to work. So we'll say, okay, we want to give you this, but let's convert it into currency notes, like paper money, where I can give you ₹1,000 in one go, right? Similarly, when we get lots of energy coming in as carbohydrates, insulin is storing it, storing it, storing it. At some point, the coins, because glucose is a quick currency, it's a quick cash, it's like an instant fuel, it will start to accumulate to the point where the body is like, we need to upgrade this currency into something bigger storage form, whether it's glycogen, which is multiple glucose molecules combined together, or let's upgrade into fat. Fat is like your fixed deposit in the savings account, right? So you have liquid cash in the current account. Let's move some funds into an FD or some long-term savings. That's fat. That's great, because remember we said the pancreas is the glucose regulator. Let's say a time comes, because today, by God's grace, we don't live in energy shortage, most of us, right, on this call. We don't have energy shortage or food shortage patches at all. Food is always available. But as evolution had it, there were definitely times when we lived in the wild where we had food shortages. That's when insulin levels would dial down, and you would liquidate these stored funds to provide that liquidity into your current account. So you would break down fat to provide steady fuel, steady energy. And you still see it in like animals that hibernate for the winter. They'll fatten up and then they'll sleep for a long time. So they're using the stored fat when no food is available in the harsh winter. Now, the problem is we have had so much of energy abundance and we don't have any prolonged winter. And so the Indian body type especially starts to, with high insulin, hold more than wanted amounts of fat, especially around the belly. If you look at the Indian body type, just today, for whoever's listened to this recording, go out in life and look at the average Indian body type. You'll sadly see muscle losses on the arms and legs and a little bit of a bulge in the waistline, which is due to insulin pushing in so much fuel into not just below the skin, but into the visceral compartment, which is around the organs inside the liver, around the muscles, in the pancreas, all kinds of toxic effects. We don't want that belly fat. So that's the fourth unwanted fat, which is the metabolically and medically harmful fat. We call it visceral fat. Very bad news.
In fact, doctor, in our clinic, we actually have a weighing scale which measures visceral fat.
Mhm.
And then that directly calculates a person's body age. And as you talk about this abdominal obesity being very prevalent in India, when I'm at the airport, I actually, tell people you need to check your insulin resistance. Now, that's an invasive test. But this weighing scale, if people can pick up a weighing scale that gives you visceral fat, It allows you to indirectly tell yourself that, buddy, you're depositing too much fat on your internal organs.
Yeah.
Chances for metabolic disease are coming in. So I love the way you went into banking and liquid cash flow and a fixed deposit. So in addition to being a romance novel artist in your former life, you could also be a good chartered accountant. But we want you to stay the doctor that you are in endocrinology, and I'm going to pick your brains on this part. I'm coming to you, I'm getting some free advice today. So, Doctor, you're an endocrinologist and you've written this amazing book called Turnaround Diabetes. It's my new favorite and it's a Ryan Fernando bestseller right now. So, my question to you is, I'm getting some free advice from you. Doctor, I know there's glucose, but should I test for insulin and glucose levels together to find this culprit of insulin resistance?
Yes, please do the simultaneous fasted insulin and fasted glucose level. It'll give you a HOMA index. If you have high glucose with high insulin, you know you're looking at insulin resistance.
And this can just come from a blood test?
Just a blood test.
So, doctor, just talk to me a little bit more about why people have a higher insulin even when they are in their younger years.
So we come back to those four wheels. If something is going on where the person is eating a lot of carbohydrates, they're eating, it could be home food, light, what they call low fat food, they're eating multiple small meals through the day, the body is continuously getting exposed to insulin from the nutrition perspective. Or they're not sleeping well and they're developing high insulin levels because of the stress of bad sleep. People can actually get prediabetes just from bad sleep. Or they have chronic stress and there's no rest period for the mind. There is no rest from the sympathetic nervous system being activated into fight, flight, fright. We're always running from some emergency. And so the stress hormones pumping for long periods of time, that can cause insulin resistance. Or over, you mentioned about the elders getting diabetes in old age. Why does that happen? It's not like they suddenly started hogging on junk food. Why do elders get diabetes in old age is because they're losing so much muscle, exponentially muscle losses after the 60s. But we are seeing sedentary lives in young people. We're not out and about the way we used to be. So muscle losses and sedentary not having enough movement is something that can be the fourth wheel contributing to insulin resistance. It can happen at any age now.
Speaking of happening at any age, we are seeing kids and teenagers getting type 2 diabetes now. How should parents deal with that?
So again, I'm glad you asked that. I have a chapter on that in my book. How can parents work with their children to help improve this diabetes in kids? I think it's about parents setting their example first. The problem will come if the parent says, don't do as I do as I say. And the parent doesn't have the healthy habits and they suddenly want these children to be this, bragging point in society that my child is so good, so good. And this is like an embarrassment for the parent. The parent has to introspect, how did this come about in my own house? And it is as the child grows in age, it's a skill that we need to transfer to these children to raise them to know how to eat. I'm specifically talking about food right now, because sometimes parents will think it's genetic, it's hereditary, it's come from my parents, I have it, so it's only a matter of time my kids get it. While the children do get the genetics, they also get epigenetics. They inherit from the habits. So if someone says, I got it because everybody in my family has it, you could have also inherited the habits and eating choices. You're eating as per your family tradition. So the child can be gradually trained as they grow in mental maturity to take decisions about their food. What I mean by this is, it'll always be the parent's job in the younger years to decide the menu. Okay? It'll be the parent's job to make a happy environment for the child to eat without distraction. The parent will decide what time the family is going to eat. The parent will decide where the family sits to eat. Are we sitting in front of the television? Is one person in their bedroom with their iPad and just munching away? So those environmental cues come from the parent. But what always stays with the child from the day the child is born is whether the child eats when food is given and how much. This is the biggest problem. A lot of Indian parents will force the child, you have to eat this third serving because I say so. And only if you eat this, I will give you this sweet treat at the end. This is a horrible conditioning, Ryan. I really want parents to know Okay.
I think that's amazing because we should not reward food eating with additional food at the end of it, which is high sugar, which causes insulin resistance, which causes this youngster to tomorrow to become a pre-diabetic adult.
Yes. And if I may go into the psychology of what's wrong with this, when a parent says, you will eat as much as I say, and they force the child to eat, the conditioning that's happening is that the parent knows how much the child should eat, what the child should eat. And we are discounting the child's own body wisdom. We are disconnecting the child from the mind and body. And tomorrow, when the parent is no longer doing this, the child will be looking for a doctor or a dietitian or a nutritionist to tell them, what should I eat and how much.
Wise words, doctor. Speaking of words, a lot of us today are desk jockeys. We sit at a desk, right? Can chronic stress alone raise blood sugar even in people who eat very clean?
Oh, that was my own case. That's exactly what happened to me.
Oh,
I
please
had
do enlighten us.
yeah, I had a patch of chronic stress that went on for about 2 years. We had just moved back from the US to India in 2011. And those 2 years were a major adjustment, both personally and professionally. I had not realized what I had signed up for. And I didn't have stress management skills in my pocket. I thought IQ and intelligence is all you need, and I'm successful and everything's fine. And suddenly life was not giving me what I wanted on my terms. And I just could not be in that reality. I was not in flow, and I did not have the grace to go smoothly into those patches. So I got prediabetes just from stress. I was eating clean-ish. I wasn't a junk food person ever. Now looking back, I had a lot of Gujarati food tendencies that gave me that prediabetes vulnerability, but stress is what pushed me over because during both my pregnancies, I did not have any gestational diabetes.
Very interesting. So, you talked about the four pillars. So, what I'm listening to an endocrinology doctor is that if clients come to me for a nutrition plan and they're eating clean, but maybe are pre diabetic or diabetic, give them one of the pillars, which is to help them manage their stress better.
For sure. And if you don't mind, I'm going to replace the word pillar with wheel. And I, for the longest time, I was also talking about the four legs of a table. And I had this analogy. And I finally replaced the legs and pillars with wheels because life is dynamic. And maybe today I have all good nutrition, all good stress management, and then some crisis comes about, some promotion, some job relocation, some family event, a wedding, some life drama that changes the environment around me, and my lifestyle car, which is going on its journey, faces a break or a speed bump, and I need to navigate out of that. So it's a very dynamic process. But yes, we need to help people learn to manage stress. That's another thing children should learn in school and in homes.
Speaking of managing, we want to manage this condition called as diabetes. So I'm moving into the next section wherein research suggests that a healthy lifestyle can actually prevent diabetes from occurring in the first place. Medications nowadays can manage blood sugar levels, but they rarely fix the root cause. And and since you've written this book, Turnaround Diabetes, I like the fact of everything that you've written in this book. So my question is, can food and lifestyle really reverse insulin resistance? And what kind of impact have you seen in real patients?
Yeah, I've seen that firsthand, Ryan, and I really pray that everybody in your audience benefits from this discussion today. I've seen people from anywhere from 5 years duration of diabetes to 30 years of duration. People who have been on insulin for over a decade. Okay. I've seen them turn things around within weeks under medical supervision. I have been able to reduce their insulin. In many cases, get them off insulin, reduce multiple tablets to less tablets just within weeks, simply by focusing on nutrition.
I like the fact that you're a doctor who tom-toms this thing that nutrition is a key wheel in helping a person and any age group with many years of diabetes. If the patient looks at it closely, it's going to work. And where am I coming with this? Okay, Dad, if you're watching this podcast, this is for you. Because for many years, I told you that nutrition can turn around diabetes. And here's one of the world's leading doctors saying so. And Dr. Roshni, I want to share this with you and for everyone out there. My dad came home and I hijacked him for his breakfast. I shifted his normal bread, butter, coffee, and eggs breakfast into baked beans, cut carrots, cut cucumbers, porcelain leaf because it's high in glutathione, little bit of balsamic vinegar. And he's like, why are you giving me this rabbit food in the morning? I was like, Dad, you're in my house, my ship, my command. You told me this when I was young. Now you listen. So sometimes I feel we children have to become the parents to our parents, so they become the kids to us, basically.
Mhm.
And so for 7 days, I fed him this, and we monitored his sugar level. And there's a video online where my dad is actually writing down this. Is like, what do you know? My fasting sugar level has come down by 40 basis points postprandial.
Yeah. Look at that.
I, and that was great. So he was living with me in Bangalore for 10-15 days. I went back to his home state of Goa, and guess what? They went back to the old breakfast. And again, the sugar starts coming up. So I think the message over here that I want to patch through people out there, if you've listened thus this far, is that diabetes is caused because we are eating too much. Diabetes can be reversed also because you're eating too much. So one of the key wheels is changing the way you've traditionally and psychologically eaten, and think of the medicine of diabetes first with diet. And that's my message to everyone out there. But doctor, coming back to you, because your book is so vast, and I'm going to invite you to my Bangalore podcast studio, and we'll sit down and do a live, and we'll do a long live with all our fans messaging in, and we'll take questions live and all. But one of the questions that I get asked frequently, which I want to ask you, is why are carbs so misunderstood when it comes to diabetes, and how can we rebuild a healthy relationship with them?
Before I respond to the question of why carbs are so misunderstood, I want to reflect on what you just did say. And I agree that the eating too much is one of the big issues here. We could call it energy surplus, energy abundance, and that high insulin. And yet, so many patients come and say, but doc, I hardly eat anything. They don't like being told that you're eating too much. And so I need to help them understand what I mean by, instead of too much, actually, when we look at the quality of their meals, and we're going to come to this, I know, in a subsequent question, but to say that sometimes it's not too much, but maybe the distribution of what they're eating is not in balance, and that's tipping the hormones to be into this progressive diabetes that's not getting better. But to come to your question of why are carbs so misunderstood, I think there's a lot that is happening with marketing. And I wrote down some words so I could, quickly summarize to you why carbs are getting misunderstood. When you market low fat, multi-grain, whole grain, low calorie, gluten free, low glycemic index, diabetic friendly, sugar free, no sugar added, all of these words on the front of packaging or as part of marketing messages by the food industry, if you turn the packets around and you read the carbohydrate content in them, it is so high. More than 50 to 60% of these foods are predominantly carbohydrates, but we are consuming them thinking that they're great for our health, not realizing what carbohydrates are doing to insulin and glucose, which we've been talking about in this podcast today.
I like all of those classifications, and the only thought that came into my head was, when I go to the supermarket next time, don't be enamored by the statements and don't be lazy for your body. Be alert, be the Sherlock Holmes, and ask questions by turning it around and just looking at each 100 grams contains how much of carbohydrate. I think that's a starting point. If people understand, they need to decide. It's like, doctor, when we go out to buy clothes, we are very finicky about the brand that we buy, the fit, the color, all of those things. But when it comes to food, our taste bud is boss.
Correct. Correct.
So the pleasure signal is the boss, not the comprehensive thinking saying that this could be bad even though it's giving me pleasure. But let's talk a little bit about carbs and its counting. How do you explain it in a simple and practical way for people?
Yeah. So before that, one science, and if there's one thing I want your audience to know, which if they didn't know it, I really want them to take this from this meeting, is it's written in print in the American Diabetes Association Standards of Care. So it's like one of the top diabetes documents out there. Every year it comes out every January. It's printed in there that low carb and very low carb diets have been shown to improve diabetes, so better glucose levels with less medicine. Okay, this is printed. The problem is it's in the fine print somewhere in the back of the document. It's not in a colorful chart that doctors can refer to. So most doctors don't see it. I go looking as a Sherlock Holmes through that document to find this statement, to know that I'm not just talking my own personal opinion. This is proven, accepted fact. The tragedy is patients of diabetes, when they see the doctor, nobody ever gave them this option or this scientific offer is, did you know, person with diabetes, that if you reduced your carbohydrates, your diabetes would get better with less medicine? People are not being given that choice, okay, in the
I
doctor's
totally,
office.
I totally agree with you because I had an argument with my father's doctor, and I'm like, why aren't you telling my father at the age of 58 that he can change his diet and he can exercise better to control this? And he says, medicine will help your father, not diet and exercise. And I remember this clearly. And I was still a medical student at Goa Medical College in clinical biochemistry. And I was reading up about this in the olden days. And we didn't have the internet then. And doctor, when I started my practice and became successful, obviously my dad started listening to me on a lot of these things, and then he started doing his reading and watching videos, because all the doctors of America and the world started publishing this. And you've practiced in America and you've come back now to India. In America, the messaging is clear: diet and exercise will help diabetes. But somehow in India, the doctors are not taking this stance. In fact, yesterday on our TV show, I had to call out the doctors, and I had to say, boss, you're not telling your patients to exercise. You're not telling your patients to go to a dietitian, medical dietitian, and get a medical prescription of your diet, because
Mhm,
now the CGM is coming out and all these technology companies are convincing patients that it is in the food. So
mhm.
I thank you for making this statement, and I'm going to ask my team to cut this out
Yeah.
and say that here's a doctor that's actually saying you can control your diabetes with reduction in carbohydrates, or still better, go deeper,
Mhm.
understand what your body's requirements are for nutrition, what is your energy requirements, and just keep at that level. And to do that, it's difficult. And therefore, for a lot of people and doctors, they know their patients are indisciplined. It's easier to prescribe a pill.
I know. And to extend some compassion to the healthcare providers, right? The idea here is a lot of doctors do write diet, exercise. They'll write the word diet, they'll write the word exercise. But if more questions come, the doctor's not trained in how to talk about diet or exercise. And I had to go out of my way to get upskilled in these prescriptions of diet, prescriptions of exercise. I had to bring it all in house because the standard hospital environment was not giving me the space, the number of volume of patients that people are swamped with as doctors doesn't give you the environment to create the culture of talking about lifestyle change. So you and I, we believe in this and we're doing it. And to extend the compassion that anybody out there who wants this hope, it's not about blaming those who are not doing. We're here to inspire those who want to change. It could be a healthcare provider. Sometimes the awakening comes when they themselves develop diabetes and they're like, oh my God, the advice I was giving my patient hasn't worked to keep me safe. I need to give some different advice now. So with that, coming to how can somebody become more aware of their carbs, I made my own app to solve for this problem because I don't like telling people blindly, do this, eat this, because I have a degree on the wall. And I think the degree on the wall in traditional sense of what a doctor was and is, when it was era of prescribing antibiotics as a life-saving drug, or when it was to do an emergency surgery to stop bleeding or to stop a surgical crisis from happening, doctors were life-saving, doing interventions that were life-saving. Now when we're talking about chronic conditions, lifestyle conditions, the doctor's expertise is a little less crucial compared to the expertise of the patient who has to go out and live life and make choices. And my prescription has some contribution, and their lifestyle choices has a very big contribution. So we need to bring them in and we need to help them. So I made my own app that would help them in their daily life know, okay, how much carb am I eating? teach them label reading, teach them to flip the packet around. And there's a great influencer in India, Revant. He's doing food, he's food farmer. He's helping people to read labels. We need to do this more. We need to get people to know what's going into their body.
I think this is wonderful, Doctor, that your app is out there. And we are going to be putting the link in the description below about Dr. Roshni's app for her clients who get in touch with her, who want to do a consultation with her. But, you talked about the journey of being a doctor and having to learn about nutrition and even becoming a personal trainer. So there's a lot of effort, and the patient demands that time from you. So, deep diving into nutrition, which you kind of upskilled yourself and gotten into a handle saying that it's very important for my patient's care. Few questions.
Yeah.
Curd, good for diabetes. And what about fermented Indian food like dosa and idli?
Okay, so social media doesn't like vague answers. Social media does not like nuance. They want good, bad, right, wrong, yes, no. So when I say it depends, usually that doesn't go viral, right? But when it comes to curd or dairy, the answer really depends. Some people do very well with curd. Some people do very well with Greek yogurt, especially a vegetarian. They rely on milk products often to get enough protein, and Greek yogurt becomes a nice concentrated form of protein for them. And some people feel dairy insensitive, lactose tolerance is a problem, and their digestive system, they don't feel great taking milk products. So it will depend. Now, yogurt has less carb or sugar than milk because the fermentation process reduces the sugar there because the bacteria consume it. That's why it becomes more and more sour if you leave it out for a longer time, because it's losing the sugar content. So again, kefir, for example, great source of multiple bacterial strains for gut health. So again, you'll have to check and do your own experiment. And what I always ask my patients to do is, again, don't take my degree for it. I can't give a blanket prescription curd is good for all humans. We're going to have to do your N of 1 experiment. Have the food in question, check the glucose before and 2 hours after to get the immediate feedback. Or the CGM, use the immediate technology to help you answer that question. As far as idli and dosa, we like calling that a fermented food. I call those foods highly processed rice grains. If you think of the number of steps that happen, and I wrote about this in the book, is first we harvest the rice, we parboil it, we dry it. Then when it's time to make that dish tomorrow, I soak the rice grain overnight. Then I get up and I grind it. Then I wait for it to ferment. And then I steam it or I cook it on a pan. That's probably 5 or 6 things been done to that rice grain. Soft, fluffy idli melts in your mouth. But if a piece of rice grain comes in your mouth, you'll spit it out. So it's no longer a whole grain. It's a grain that has been beaten and pulverized to melt in your mouth powder, right? So, and the gut bacteria are gone. I mean, if you fermented it, those got killed off when you steamed it and cooked it at high temperatures. So you're really not getting those probiotic or prebiotic benefits.
I think this one is going to go viral because now idli and dosa, everyone coming to Bangalore to go to that very famous cafe where we put a lot of ghee on that dosa and that idli. I think it gives us perspective that we the nutritionist, think about a food only from its glycemic index point of view, which is how much sugar it contributes. But now with the monitoring, with the CGM, or just, a pinprick post eating the food, pre-eating the food and post eating the food, it becomes bio-individual.
Yes.
In fact, I'd like to share my own personal experience with the CGM. I put on the CGM and I actually had a fluctuation for orange juice on 3 different days. And it depended on what I ate in my breakfast. So then I was like, whoa, even another food already in my tummy can affect my sugar spike for the next meal. And yes, I know orange juice is the worst thing because it's equivalent to 8 oranges and there's just loads of sugar in it. But I was just doing the experiment. So I think people can become their own geniuses and Sherlock Holmes by just beginning to do a scientific experiment on their own self for a full year. Eat a food, track your sugar level. That's the best way to know what really works for you and your gut. Now, since we are on gut, I want to pick your brains a little bit more because you mentioned about curd and really being great for vegetarians. So you see a lot of vegetarian diabetic patients. And what are their common food mistakes that they're making? And what are your suggestions to fix it?
Yes. And, I should say, because I love, when I come to Bangalore, I love to have those idli and dosa. But what I do is I put lots of ghee on it and I put lots of gunpowder on it. So maybe instead of 2 dosas, I might have one, but loaded with the ghee and the gunpowder. So I really get that pleasure piece out of it. But coming to what the vegetarian mistakes and then the remedies, a lot of times, if you ask somebody, how much do you eat? They will quantify the meal based on 3 rotis, 2 cups of rice. And that's their currency of did I eat well? Did I eat a full meal or not? Based on the count of servings of roti or rice. I want them to think of shifting that is, can you count your meal adequacy by saying, did I get enough protein at this meal? Make the protein as the focus. Because as a vegetarian, oftentimes, and I actually brought this, I for your podcast, Ryan, I went and I got somebody's stomach.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Now, this is the size of the stomach. If you put your fist, I'm going to cover it like that. That's about the size of your stomach.
Oh, that's the size of the stomach. I thought the stomach was about that big.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it's
And that's a medical model.
It's a medical model. Yeah, it's not a real person's stomach. It's a plastic stomach. But
then how does Nagarjuna biryani fit in that stomach? It's like that big.
coming to that is when someone says, I feel full after I eat 3 rotis or 2 cups of rice. What they have done is they're only able to feel full when this bag is stretched beyond capacity and they feel the physical squeezing of the stomach along the other organs which are there inside. So they don't know what fullness from the hormonal perspective is. There is something called hormonal fullness and there is something called physical fullness. The biggest mistake we make when we are vegetarian, by default, we are carbohydrate heavy. Carbohydrates do not make you feel full. High insulin, right? So high carbohydrates means highest possible insulin. Highest insulin means you're not feeling full. But then how will I feel full? I will keep eating till this thing stretches. Okay. Now you asked me about gut health. I'm jumping topics here because I have to. I'm going to do a surgery, instant surgery. Okay. Here we go. This is the inside of the stomach. There are little muscles inside. Okay. That churn the food, massage it with the acids. Now, if I have eaten till the point that I stretch this stomach, I'm not just stretching the bag open, I'm also stretching this little valve open. So if I stretch this valve open wider than it should be, and then the laundry machine starts to churn, imagine you're doing your laundry and the thing that goes round and round, mixing your clothes with soap water. Imagine the door is open and that churning is going on, rubbing the clothes with soap water. Soapy water is going to spill out.
In this case, it's going to be acid.
There you go. You're with me. Now you're saying I have acid reflux. And then the doctor says, here's a pantoprazole, omeprazole. Yeah. Okay. So it's a huge mistake. Okay. And they keep feeling this way and they don't know that the carbohydrates in their vegetarian, it's all linked, Ryan. It's all linked. Everything is linked.
But people are in deniability then. No, doctor, I don't eat so much. I need to eat so much. My mother taught me how to eat so much,
Yeah.
So I think we have to culturally also relearn how to eat.
We do. And the culture, I'm all for culture. I love Indian culture. And at the same time, if we look around, our country is racing towards an epidemic. We're taking world #1 rankings in things that we should not be proud of, right? So there's something we need to recalibrate. And as much as people might say, but my ancestors ate this way. Look, your ancestors, I never met them. I don't know what's up with them. If they were healthy, that's great. Okay. But if you are not healthy, we need to talk.
I love that point blank approach. And that's something I used with my dad, point blank. I'm like, you know what? You can talk to anyone in the world. You're going to listen to me because I am the specialist here for your diet. And Doc, I think that's what we need to do because India is the largest population in the world with the youngest population, but we're going in the direction of the sickest population.
It's horrible. We can't do that. If we want the economy to grow, we need to be healthy for a long time.
And I'm so grateful that a person like you has come back to our country. Many Indian doctors go across the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean, and they stay there, and the land, America is one of the best countries, and you came back. So I'm truly grateful for you to come back and help people in India, and they should be listening into you. They should be contacting you. They should be taking your advice. Now, uh, Dr. Roshni, do you practice in India, and can patients reach out to you?
Yes, I have a medical practice and we work online. So I'm on remote telemedicine. So, yeah, there is a way for people to reach us on my website.
Wonderful. If everyone's tuned in this far, know this: doctor's credentials are there down below, along with her app, along with her website. So you could get a consultation too with her. So, doctor, what's this plate method? And how can we manage blood sugar levels better without calorie counting?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. I don't want people to do things that are difficult. I want to make it easy. And counting calories is definitely difficult. Even asking somebody to, who sits with a ruler and measures their idli size or their chapati size 6 inch. A lot of us do this prescriptive, or we'll say so many ml or grams. Most human beings don't put food on their plates like that. They just have a plate and they put things. They count with their eyes, right? So when you visually fill the plate, if you can change the way you distribute things, that's the plate method. Sometimes when you're in a buffet, you put everything on top of itself. So it becomes one big like volcano of food. So that's not the plate method. The plate method is where you are dividing out quadrants and percentage real estate of the plate of that circle. How much percentage goes to which of the three major groups: carbohydrates, vegetables, and proteins.
Can people with diabetes safely try intermittent fasting, or should they stick to a low calorie diet instead?
Great. So the goals of fasting and low calorie diets are the same, which is to reduce the calorie intake. But the way in which both of them do it is very different. And therefore, fasting happens to be much more effective, in my opinion and in my experience, than calorie restriction. Think about it. What is fasting? You're eating nothing. That's 0 calories. So that's obviously calorie restriction. But the benefit is that because you are fasting, you have not secreted that high insulin, because insulin is going to come in this meal. Even if it's a low calorie meal, insulin is going to come and say, store that energy, don't burn it. So the problem is, let's say somebody tries to cut their calories. Instead of a 1600 calorie, they go to an 800 calorie diet. So you're eating a low calorie diet, 800 calories, insulin is coming on board and telling the body, store fat, don't burn it. But I'm only getting 800 calories when my body needed, let's say, 1200 or 1500 calories. So now I'm in a shortage of calories. But insulin is like this blockade, like not allowing you to access your own funds. Imagine you've gone and given money in the bank, and then the bank security gets in the way. When you're trying to withdraw funds, they don't let you withdraw the funds. So that's what insulin messaging is doing. It's saying, store fuel, don't burn it. So then am I stupid to keep burning calories at a 1200, 1500 rate when I'm only getting 800? My response will be, I will slow down my burn rate so that I don't run out. And my metabolic rate is now slowing down. So the problem with low calorie diets is metabolic rate slows down. And you've probably seen this. I see it. People who've done years of calorie restricted diets, low calories, their metabolic rate slows down, where they find it very difficult to lose that extra weight. So I would much rather supervise somebody with diabetes. Once we check the medicines, make sure they won't get a hypoglycemia, and check those four wheels of the lifestyle car, use the optional fifth tool of intermittent fasting.
Wow, that's amazing, because suddenly you've given hope to a lot of maybe pre diabetics that one way is to get fasting. Our traditional ancient religious systems always encouraged us to fast, be it Christianity, Hinduism, or Islam. All of them
Mhm.
have fasting built into it in one way or the other. And medical research done on fasting during those periods have seen immense improvement in metabolic syndrome or high sugar levels in this case. So, India, if you're hearing it, doctor says get in touch with a doctor if you have diabetes, and she will guide you, or any doctor will guide you on how you can do fasting. Ryan Fernando and his team at Core Nutrition advocate fasting as part of a lifestyle to improve metabolic regulation. Going forward, to all of these people who are listening in, most of them who are listening into this podcast are high stress professionals.
Mhm.
So, what can these high stress professionals do early on in their life to prevent insulin resistance or future diabetes?
I'll again come back to my example myself. Highly qualified professional. Of course, anybody could say their job is so stressful, right? If you're from finance, your job is stressful. If you're a doctor, your job is stressful. If you're a lawyer, your job is stressful. If you're anything trying to be successful, there is stress potentially. And I was not immune to that. So, what can we do? A couple of quick tips is I ask people to uh, catch their self talk. Can they catch their own thoughts? Can you journal at the end of the day and hear your statements that you're making to yourself? What are you saying in your mind? Do your statements make you powerless, or do your statements give you power? Let me give you an example in diabetes, right? Like if we're specifically sticking to diabetes today, let's say end of day, you're reviewing how your day went, and you say, today I couldn't have helped it because there was this client meeting, high stress job, had to go and wine and dine the customers, and food was not in my control. How does that statement make you feel? Powerless or disempowered? Or does it empower you? I think it makes you shrink. It makes you lose power. I didn't have a choice. I had no power. You feel like a victim of your circumstances. So check for that, because that can add to chronic stress when you don't feel in charge of your own life. And you also feel like I can either be successful at my job or I can manage my diabetes. I can't have both, right? So what I do here is I get into a bit of psychology with them is let's think about, why do you want to do well in your job? What does that mean? If you're a high stress professional, why do you care about doing well in your job? Well, I would like to earn, I would like to support my family, I would like the credibility and recognition. Why? Because at the end of the day, I want to be happy. Okay, so aiming for happiness and aiming for health, will they be exclusive? Like, is it okay to have one and not the other? No, I want both. So how do we help you have both? Because if you have health, you can invest more into your career. If you're sick, it's going to pull you away from the commitments that you want to make professionally. So when they start to see that my reason, like what used to be my excuse, starts to become my reason why. And my own example of fitness, Ryan, I'll share, and I share this openly, is I used to say, I can't exercise because I'm a busy young doctor trying to build a new professional life in India. I had just come, I needed to make my name in society, and I had young kids. So because I have a busy career and young kids, I can't exercise. I don't have time. And I was doing this excuse like work and kids means no fitness. And I realized that somewhere I had to find the positive emotion. Why does work and career matter to me? Why does being a good mother matter to me? Actually, these things are not separate. And I realized being healthy would make me a better doctor. Being healthy would make me a more effective mother. So it was together that I found this balance to say, I am a busy, fit doctor and a busy, fit mother. So the whole story changed when I changed the mechanics in my head, in the thinking process. I still only have 24 hours in the day, even now. But today I am a fit and busy mother and doctor. So changing the self talk.
I think, Doc, this is wisdom. This is good, sound wisdom advice to anyone who's like, I don't want to get diabetes in the future. Take charge of your life. In fact, I had a billionaire client come to me and we measured all of his parameters. And one of the parameters on that weighing scale was his body age.
Hmm.
And as a 44-year-old, his body age was 55. So it kind of hit him, but he didn't have diabetes.
Hmm.
But I'm like, in the next decade you will get diabetes, because I was looking at HbA1c, I was looking at his HOMA score. But what you said, as you coming back as a doctor to India and then taking charge of your life, doing the exercise, we put him on a nutrition plan and an exercise plan. He dropped 10 years of
Mm-hmm.
body age on that scale.
Yeah.
And he came very close to 45, and then he continued for another year, and we came down 4 years younger than his body age. So now he was a 45-year-old in with, but the scale saying he's a 41-year-old. Now, for all the professionals listening in, this is important. Assume your salary, for ease of sake, is 100 lakhs a year, right? If you're a 44-year-old and your body age is 55, you're going to retire in 5 years as per your metabolic age. So you got 5 years of saving, which is 500 lakhs. Okay. But what if you reversed your age and you were 4 years younger? Do you know what that billionaire said to me? Ryan, I would have paid you 10 times the value of what you charged. Now that I know if I am younger, I earn more. And parallelly, Dr. Roshni said another thing to me. He said, I lead teams who are half my age. I need to be inspirational because half of my age is already smarter than what we were at their age. So they are not going to listen to me as a high professional individual. So they're going to look at how I exercise, how I train, how I have energy to sit through 12 hours of meeting in the day. And they're like, what keeps pace with this man? So this is amazing wisdom advice, both from your desk, and I've experienced it personally for those who take charge of their life. And eating and exercise are two great wheels that people need to move on. Speaking of the wheels, okay, life changes. You are a child first, then you become a parent, and then you are the child to your older parent, and then they become your kids basically. And in your book, you've written an amazing thing about we should be encouraging our parents to strength train even in their 60s or 70s. What's a safe way to begin? And I know now that you've told me that you've certified yourself as a personal trainer. Why did you do that? And now why are you telling all these oldies to start working out?
Thank you, Ryan. Um, I'm glad you threw in some Hindi there because I think a lot of our elders will say, "Abhi is umar mein hum kya exercise karenge?" Right? It's not about age. This is one culture that I want to change. I'm all about joint families or multi-generational families staying close together, having that wisdom from the grandparents come to the grandchildren. It's a beautiful thing that we have in India. What I don't want to see is that it has to be frailty and weakness that hits our elders, where they become so dependent and they become less and less mobile in their beautiful years of life post retirement, 65 and beyond. That should be the time that our parents get to really go free, enjoy, travel, visit their grandchildren, have family trips and climb mountains, go for pilgrimages, whatever they feel excited about in life. That's the time to cash in on this whole life that they've dedicated to their kids. And for that, we need to guide them. The parents don't know because culturally it wasn't part of their generation to think about muscle building as a longevity. They thought about saving money for us, for their kids and for their futures. We need to help them build their retirement plan, which includes muscle. And I say this, like you mentioned with your very wealthy client, money in the bank is one thing, but if you don't have muscle on the bones, what are you going to do with that money in the bank?
Wow, that's powerful words. I got my parents to strength train with a physiotherapist. My father-in-law is an orthopedic surgeon. My mother-in-law is a gynecologist. And when I got a personal trainer for them in their city, my father-in-law was looking at the personal trainers like, इस उम्र में हमको ये चीज क्यों चाहिए? हमको पता है कैसा करने का है. And I think India, you need to listen in, okay? When you have that trainer turn up, or when you have that nutritionist, or when you have that doctor, spend valuable money on these assets. Because as doctor says, you will put the right food on your plate, the right muscle on the bone, and then you can go to Disney World with your grandchildren at the age of 75 and not say, I'm too old to take my grandchildren to Disney World.
Exactly.
Doctor, it's been a pleasure this far. I have a quick rapid fires with you. And
Yeah.
Are you ready for it? Crisp answers.
Ready.
Because you know what? Like a spike in sugar, I want this to be very, very quick, but not deadly.
Okay.
So, Doctor, here's our rapid fire, and everyone in India is going to be listening in closely to what you advise. One tip for someone who doesn't have diabetes yet, but is listening to this.
Aim for 1.2 grams of protein per kg body weight every day.
Wow. So you're saying let's get more protein in our diet. Okay. Top 3 foods to avoid for diabetes.
Oh, so I don't prescribe diets. So I had three responses instead.
What are they?
So one is mindful eating. You are in charge of your choices. Two, the minute I give you a diet restriction, it's going to trigger cravings. And number three, instead of me stopping you, I want you to learn how to read labels.
Wise advice, doctor. One tip for a person with diabetes that they should do or eat first thing in the morning.
Start with water because you've been dehydrated overnight, not drinking water in your sleep, and have a meal for protein, giving 25 to 30 grams at breakfast.
4 food habits you recommend before bed for stable blood sugar.
Number one, for your pancreas, review your day's carbohydrates and proteins. Number two, for your muscles, check how active you were and whether you had enough movement, pushing your muscles to failure. Number three, for your liver, did you have enough overnight gap between dinner and the first meal the next day? And four, for your circadian rhythm and body clock, are you eating in coordination with the day-light cycle?
Doctor, 3 tips to help people manage the cravings that they have throughout the day.
Number one, be well hydrated because feeling thirsty can feel like all-day cravings. Number two, make sure to get enough healthy fats and protein at every meal. Number three, get high quality and quantity of sleep because being tired all day can come up as cravings where your body wants or your brain wants energy and it's not been slept well, so it's looking for food.
In fact, there was a study that said cravings on low sleep on the previous day increases your calorie intake by up to 900 calories extra the next day. And the heart beats faster, adrenaline's higher, therefore you crave more sugar, and sugar is the normal choice the next day.
And ghrelin goes up when you've not slept well. So your stomach's growling and you're just feeling hungry even though your calorie requirements don't go up.
Top 4 safety tips for fasting if someone has diabetes.
Make sure you're getting enough protein. Fix salt losses and monitor your blood pressure. Review your diabetes medication with your doctor to prevent hypoglycemia. 4, be well hydrated to help your body flush out the glucose in the urine.
Brilliant tips, doctor. Quick 3 things that a night shift worker can do to manage their blood sugar levels better.
If you have to stay up at night, number 1, sleep in the day when it's time to sleep. Don't burn the candle at both ends, staying awake to do the household chores. You'll have to find ways to get that rest. Number 2, reduce light pollution. Sleep with an eye mask so that your brain knows it's darkness and it's time to go into deep sleep. That's the way your body heals. Number 3, add strength training to help reset your body clock.
Doctor, quick 3 tips to reduce stress for all ages, not just diabetics.
Number 1, have an attitude of gratitude. Number 2, journal to check your thoughts for victimhood or powerlessness. And number 3, check for limiting beliefs. Do you stick your thoughts into the past and future, or are you here in this present moment in the body?
One food people are scared of, but really shouldn't be.
Banana or mango?
I already love you as a doctor because mango is my favorite fruit. And I'm like, even with the CGM on, I get a sugar spike. I'm like, no. For this moment, I think insulin can manage. So doctor, the pancreas is the guy that produces this insulin. Can it be damaged? And if so, how? And what is this burnout thing that you've written in your book?
So even in type 2 diabetes, there can be pancreas burnout or glucose toxicity, where the high glucose is poisoning the pancreas. Or in type 1 diabetes, there has been a destruction or loss of the tail of the pancreas, which secretes the insulin. So in both situations, your insulin secretion drops, and then we have to give you insulin back. So the way to know whether you need to be given insulin or not, you have to do the C-peptide test. If the C-peptide test is close to 0, it means your body's not making enough insulin and you need insulin injections.
Doctor, I had to ask you this question from the book directly. I know I have my notes over here, but I thought I forgot something. Diabetes itself is toxic to muscle tissue. Can you expand, doctor?
High glucose is a poison. As much as we kept on raising children to think they need glucose for energy and we give them sugary drinks for energy, high glucose is a slow poison. You will kill off your pancreas, your liver, your muscle, kidney, eyes. So muscle losses from high sugar causes this vicious cycle because muscle was supposed to take up the glucose and burn it for you when you move, when you're active. But if high sugar is killing off muscle, you're losing that burning capacity, and then you're in an even worse vicious circle of rising glucose. That's when diabetes gets more and more difficult to treat. Some of the most difficult cases of diabetes I have are in people who have lost large amounts of muscle.
Doctor, there's a lot of buzz on the internet, social media, celebrities are all taking this one drug and they're saying you need to go to an endocrinologist to get the prescription. And we know that as semaglutide, also the brand name called as Ozempic. How can we take Ozempic naturally?
Yes. So Ozempic or semaglutide is trying to copy a hormone that your body already has. The hormone is GLP-1. You could naturally improve GLP-1 by getting enough protein in your diet. Now, Ozempic works by increasing GLP-1 action in the body, but it comes with so many side effects. It ends up paralyzing some people's stomach. It can trigger muscle losses. But if you were taking natural protein in your diet, your digestion would be absolutely normal and fine, and you would be protecting your muscle mass. So why would you want to reduce your appetite with a medicine when you can naturally feel full and satisfied with protein?
In fact, doctor, to continue on this, I read the research paper which talked about whey protein isolate at 17 grams, increasing the GLP-1 receptor action by about 141%, somewhere around that. And fenugreek seeds, which is our methi seeds, has been researched to show that there is a 40-fold increase in the GLP receptor action point when we just take 1 teaspoon of this ground powder. And there you have it. You have an endocrinologist who's saying that you can get the GLP receptors working better, the peptide working with more production, all on getting a better protein diet, as well as you can do nutritional therapies to help you out. So doctor, everyone looks for a secret hack. Are there any hidden blood tests that can give us a crystal ball gazing into our future?
Yes. Don't just look at your fasting glucose to think that you're safe from diabetes or insulin resistance. I can see the trends. I can see trends even 5-10 years beforehand. When I start looking at the triglycerides, I want them to be less than 80 milligrams per deciliter. Anything above that, I start thinking insulin resistance. Also look at the triglyceride HDL ratio. On the cholesterol profile, most people look at the total cholesterol and the LDL and they get all nervous. I'm asking you in the same lipid panel, focus on triglyceride divided by HDL. You want your triglyceride to be less than HDL so that the triglyceride HDL ratio should be less than 1. Anything above 3 is definite insulin resistance. And the other test you can look for in the simple blood panels, SGOT and SGPT. I don't want these above 25. If they are, you could be sitting on fatty liver, which is an invisible, silent way to know that someone's moving towards insulin resistance.
Doctor, this has been an amazing session with you. So much of information. Now, if anyone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. It's Roshni Sanghani, Roshani, and Sanghani is Sanghani.
And I'm going to be putting the link in the description below for Dr. Roshni's book, which is Turnaround Diabetes, as well as all her website and social media handles. Dr. Roshni, this has been an amazing session. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Thanks for the work you do.
That was a powerful conversation about diabetes, lifestyle changes, and reclaiming health. Dr. Roshni Sanghanie's insights remind us small, consistent changes can lead to big improvements. It's all about finding hope, regaining energy, and embracing a life of freedom and balance.